I am excited. I am excited as all hell because I'm getting to see one of my favorite bands live today. Today is a momentous day because the band Sylosis is coming to my hometown, or state rather, in Atlanta, Georgia for the very first time tonight. And they're only playing 4 songs because they're like the opener for Lamb of God, but they're a good 4 songs, so I'm really psyched about that. God, they're one of my favorite bands. So today, I figure, or this evening rather, is a good time for me to talk about their latest album that they released last month, entitled Monolith. So I'm gonna get started with that. I would have the album with me, but I can't seem to find my copy of it. So, all right, track by track. Skip by clicking. God, it's all reversed. Clicking the faucet over there if you want to skip to me just talking about the album in general. Okay, first track. Oh, and this is a grand one. Out From Below. Oh my gosh. Since I heard it on the album stream, like it was actually the first song I listened to off this album, like it and the second song, Fear the World, because I didn't listen to the singles first like I did for the previous album, Edge of the Earth. But Out From Below has definitely become one of my absolute favorite Sylosis songs. So yeah, like Colossus, like L'Enfant Sauvage, this is my favorite song off this album. It's just structured so well. From the intro into the very awesome shredding upward into the high notes main riff. It's like it's got low notes, then it kind of ascends. The main riff is just really cool. And it's just a really powerful song throughout. There is a lack of clean vocals like on this song that probably would have fit well because they fit well on some of the other songs on this album where he's doing clean singing. But other than that, it's just great. And the midsection, there's a couple of riffs that come up in the midsection of this song about a little over halfway through that are just freaking awesome. Like, I can't remember who said this, but someone said, I can like quote them in the description, that these 2 riffs are the best riffs that Metallica never wrote. And I think Sylosis have better riffs, but they're fantastic. And then the ending to this song is just grand. I get chills every time I hear the militaristic snare roll that works in the outro. It's just, oh my gosh, this is a fantastic song. If you have time, you should go listen to it now. Stop this review. Go and listen to the album. But okay, the second song, Fear the World. This is the song that Sylosis are actually opening up their 4-song set with on this tour. And it's a really cool song because I feel this song... Well, Sylosis are a band that sort of play a more modern style of what I'd call progressive thrash metal. So you don't hear them sounding like a lot of their contemporaries that try to go for the retro thrash idea, like Skeleton Witch and Havoc. But the first riff that you actually hear in this song really harkens that feel of the old school style of thrash really well, and it's really cool to hear Sylosis doing that. And it actually mixes, unlike I feel some of the other parts of this album, with the really raw production on this album that I'll get into in the album as a whole part. But this isn't the best song on the album, but it's really strong, and it has a really cool church bell outro. Okay, next song, What Dwells Within. This song really fits with the theme that Josh Middleton, the lead vocalist and guitarist from this album, said he was trying to go for with this album, which is that it has a much darker sense of feel to it than their past material. This is easily a perfect example of that. It's the darkest song on the album, and it's got this absolutely these haunting clean vocal passages. Excuse me. I'm a bit stopped up. Like, there's this clean vocal line that's a bit back in the mix that goes, and at a couple points in the middle of the song. It's actually unnerving. There are like unnerving points in this song. It's really cool because I've never gotten that feel from Sylosis before. But yeah, then the next song, Behind the Sun. This song pissed me off for a while because those of you who know, I'm a huge Meshuggah fan. Like, fourth track on this album is also called Behind the Sun, and the fourth track on this album is called Behind the Sun. So it's like, I was like, really, Sylosis? But the thing is, like, if you're a composer and you're constantly writing music, you're not always going to be paying attention to, like, what's around you, what's being released at the time when you're in writing mode. So it's like, I'm sure it was completely unintentional. But in any case, about the song, it's really cool. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it other than that it's a mix of a sense of brooding music and really groovy metal music, because it kind of goes along at this 6/8 rhythm, but it's really cool. It's another one of the really dark songs on the album, like What Dwells Within. Not quite as dark, but still really good. And there's an excellent clean vocal section in the second half of the song that's amazing. Okay, now the next few tracks, next 3 or 4 tracks I'm going to talk about are absolutely fantastic as far as the whole album is concerned. I remember in Matt from Bedside Reviews, his review of Gojira's L'Enfant Sauvage, he said there are like 3 tracks in a row on that album that are fantastic. That's how I feel about The River, Monolith, the title track, Paradox, and A Dying Vine. Oh my god. This is like the beginning, this middle part, and the very ending of this album are the high points for me. So let me get into The River. Out of these 4, The River is definitely the best because it's just such a powerful tune with these big chords and really fast, really thrashy moments. It's just, oh my god. I feel it's one of the more powerful songs Sylosis has ever written. And it's not as dark as the ones preceding it, but like I feel it steps on them. It's just amazing. It's got amazing shredding in it too, and I just really like this song. I can't think right now. I'm so psyched for singing Sylosis, but it's fantastic. Fantastic song. Next, we have the title track, which is easily the best title track that Sylosis has done, because I haven't particularly liked the Sylosis previous 2 title tracks on their previous 2 LPs, but this, even though it doesn't change up a lot as much as Sylosis do on their songs, they don't generally repeat themselves or go back to a chorus, and they don't stay in one riff too long, but this song is a bit more slow-moving in how it changes sections. There are really only a couple main sections of this song, and it starts out with this intro thing, this really dark, like I can just play a second of it for you. And then it builds on that. It's another one of the really dark songs. It builds on that with some just huge chords, and then he starts singing over those chords, and it's not a very fast song overall. It's one of the more slow songs in this album, but it's still really powerful. And once you get right, literally, time-wise, right in the middle of the song, it drops out and you hear this melody that I actually heard for the first time on the trailers that were released before this album came out. But when I first heard it, I thought it was the exact same as the beginning of the first song, Out From Below. I'm like, holy shit, there's like a musical connection along with the dark concept of this album in the music. Like the intro's repeated in the middle of the album. Oh my god, but no. It's a completely different melody. I got fooled. But something like that does happen on this album, which is really cool, but I'll get into that. Monolith is a fantastic song. And then you get into Paradox, which is, another great song, as I've said. I can't really think of too many words to say about it, but just the progression of the riffs is great, and there's a moment in the middle where everything drops out and you hear their drummer grooving along on this tom roll with this ambient stuff. Like, Sylosis are amazing at making ambiences in their music. I've even called them ambient progressive thrash metal at points, because even when they're blasting these huge, loud, Gojira-sized chords that they've been doing lately on their past two albums, they can have all these ambience in the back layers behind it, and this song is a fantastic example of that, and it's just great. Okay, next up is the first single of this album called A Dying Vine. This song, oh my god, it's great. I'm sounding like a kiss-ass for this album, but it's definitely the fastest song on this album, and there's this eargasm moment for me. Like, there's like these two chords with these really high notes in them that ring out that he does a couple of times in this song, and that's just an absolute eargasm for me. And it has a great guitar solo. All of the solos on this album are fantastic, by the way. Unlike some of their previous albums where they some of the solos in the guitars sound the same, in this one, each guitar solo is different, and it complements the section of the song it's in for the benefit of the entire song. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, next is a track that I don't feel is quite as strong. It's probably the weakest song on the album, but it's All Is Not Well, and it's just not a very strong track after having heard like songs from Out From Below, those 4 songs that I talked about. It just feels like weak in comparison. I feel it could have been left off the album. But then again, it's a concept album, so everything lyrically kind of fits together with the concept. So maybe he couldn't have left it out. Maybe there's something vital in there. I don't know. And then you have Born Anew, which is the second single from this album. It's got a really cool riff at the beginning, and then it just progresses into probably what I'd say this is the middle ground of the album. You have the amazing songs like Out From Below, River, Paradox, and the last song that I'll get to, and the songs that are really good but not quite as good, and this is kind of like that. This is probably the middle ground of the whole album. Last song, though, let's say the first part of it is my second favorite track from the album, but the majority of this song pissed me the fuck off. It just absolutely pissed me off, because what this song does, it does what a lot of bands decide to do with their fucking albums. They make a huge song length, like 19, 18, 17 minutes, and they put a song in at the beginning, have a shit ton of silence, and then do a song at the end, or a little bonus track kind of thing. Because Sylosis, what they've generally done is they've made a bonus track that they release on iTunes. I guess they kind of threw it in at the end of Enshrined here, although it's not really a bonus track, though it's important in the musical concept of the whole album. I'll get into that. But when the track listing was first released, I was hoping that this song would be like a 19-minute, either like doomy Sylosis song, like a funeral doom Sylosis song, or a really progressive as fuck piece, but then I just kind of got a bit of a letdown. It's like the album pulled The Way of All Flesh on me. It had the big silence moment. But nonetheless, despite how irritating that was for me as a progressive metal fan, Enshrined, even though it's only 4 minutes, it's a fantastic song. It's full of those huge Gojira-y chords and ambiences that I love with Sylosis' music, and it's just a really powerful first closer to the album, I guess you can say, because after that giant-ass silence, you get a song that someone on YouTube commented about, like, the hidden track on Enshrined, saying that it's, like, basically Sylosis' version of Fade to Black. And it kind of is, but instead of having the 2 clean verses and then going into the heavy second half, it has these 2 verses, and then it kind of goes into a really heavy ending, which basically, that's the point where the intro of Out From Below, the intro to the whole album, that musical theme is restated, and I was like, oh, fuck yes, when I heard that. But lyrically, I noticed something about this song, and some of the songs on this album, too. I feel like it's really hitting home with a personal topic for their vocalist, Josh Middleton, because he's talked about how sometimes he feels like he's not the most social person in the world when he's off tour, and he's like kind of alone with his music in his life. And you can definitely hear that reflected here. And it's cool because I can kind of relate to that. Before recently, for a long time, I was a really unsocial person, both on the internet and in person in real life. So that song, it definitely gave me feels. But yeah, album as a whole time, people, okay? As you can tell, I really like it. I think it's fantastic, but like I always do when I get to the album as a whole section, I'm going to start by saying the few gripes that I have with this album. First of all, the production. They went for a really raw production on this album. They said they went into a studio kind of out in the middle of nowhere where some really famous bands like Led Zeppelin have recorded, but that they were going for a really raw, dark sound on this album, as opposed to I don't know, maybe that's a car. Maybe they thought the previous two records were overproduced. I don't think so at all. I don't think Conclusion of an Age or Edge of the Earth are overproduced at all. I think they have just the right amount of production on them to make them sound fantastic. But this album, the guitar tone feels a bit more raw. It's the same guitar tone, but it doesn't feel as heavy because of the production. And the drums feel like not as clear. The mix isn't as clear because of the production, and I feel like some of the ambiences in the background, like that they do behind the heaviness of their sound, is kind of lost at points because of that. The album sounds fine through big speakers, but once you get into little speakers like headphones, the quality kind of is detracted a bit for me because of the production. I think the concept on this album is also really cool, though. The whole dark theme, the theme that's basically centered around losing a loved one and then going through the considered malpractice of bringing, I think it's bringing her back to life. Like you can tell on the album cover, it's this woman, if I had it with me, I'd show you. It's this woman, and she's kind of reflected on the other side of the album art with like a goat skull, and then symbolizing that she died, and then a tombstone with a monolith rising out of it from the middle. I think that's the point of the album, the climax where she is revived through the ritual of the monolith. But it's really cool. The dark theme is one of the coolest aspects about this album. And I mentioned this other album by this other band earlier, but I think this really is Sylosis' equivalent to Gojira's The Way of All Flesh. You got the really technical riffage, like Gojira definitely went more technical on Way of All Flesh. There are more technical moments on this album, especially the themes of darkness and death, both musically and in the lyrics, are perfectly paralleled here, and you got that fucking amazing song off the album, but it's like with all that silence at the end. Both The Way of All Flesh and this album have that, so I feel this is really Sylosis' equivalent to that, which is not a bad thing because The Way of All Flesh it was my favorite Gojira album for a while, and I feel this has been for a little bit, so. But the problem with Gojira and Sylosis is that both these bands, like, I can't pick a favorite album from them, honestly, or I have difficulty. Like, Sylosis' Conclusion of an Age album is excellent. Yes, their debut is excellent, despite what people say about it having metalcore influences. The second album, it had to grow on me, but it's just as fantastic. And this album, right from the get-go of me listening to it, is also just as fantastic. This is a fantastic release. Gotta go. Gotta see him live. So I'm going to cut this off. But 9 out of 10. Great album. Check it out. Bye.